Hark, and listen to a saga from before the sagas, a memory from a time before the world was scarred. This is the story of an anchor, and the forging of the spirit that would one day hold fast against the raging currents of a broken multiverse. This is the beginning of the man who would be called Samson. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 1. The Lesson of the Unmoving Rock. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. My name is Kwame, and I am a son of the Akan Federation. My world was not one of concrete and steel, but of red earth and endless green. The air carried the scent of shea butter and cooking yams, and the rhythm of our lives was set by the sun's journey across the sky and the intricate language of the drums at night. As a youth, I was proud. My arms were strong from climbing the great baobab trees, my legs swift from racing across the savannah. I believed strength was a thing to be wielded, a force to push against the world. It was our village elder, Bafor, a man whose skin held the texture of a wise and ancient map, who sought to teach me the deeper truth. The rainy season had come, and the Tano River, usually a calm, life-giving artery, had become a raging, muddy torrent. It tore at its banks and carried with it the fury of the storm. Elder Bafor led me to the river's edge. "You are strong, Kwame," he said, his voice as calm as the eye of the storm we could hear in the distance. "Your muscles are like the leopard's, your will like the lion's. But the world is full of forces greater than any single creature. Today, your lesson is the river." His instruction was simple. I was to walk to the center of the raging current and stand until the sun touched the horizon. I was not to be moved. Confident in my power, I waded in. The water was a physical blow, cold and powerful. I found a spot where the current was strongest, dug my feet into the shifting gravel of the riverbed, and braced myself. I met the river's push with my own. It was a battle of wills, my muscles straining against the unceasing, fluid power of the Tano. For a time, I held. But the river does not tire. My strength, however, is finite. A particularly violent surge, carrying with it a heavy log, caught my legs. My anchor in the gravel broke, and I was thrown downstream, humbled and sputtering, until I could pull myself to the bank. Elder Bafor was waiting for me, his expression unreadable. "You fought the river," he stated simply. "It is strong," I replied, my pride wounded. "Yes," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "But the rock in the river's heart is stronger still." "Does the rock fight? Does it push back?" "No. The rock endures. It knows its center. It knows its connection to the earth beneath the water is deeper and more true than the fleeting anger of the current. The river's strength flows around it. You tried to be the leopard. You must learn to be the rock." I understood. I had tried to use the strength of my body. The elder was asking me to find the strength of my spirit. I waded back into the torrent. This time, I did not brace against it. I found my footing, closed my eyes, and breathed. I ignored the push of the water and focused inward, seeking the quiet, unmoving center of my being. I felt the soles of my feet, my connection to the solid earth beneath the chaos. I did not fight the current. I allowed it to flow past me, around me. I became an island of stillness in a world of violent motion. The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and deep violet. And I had not moved. When I returned to the bank, soaked and weary but with a new understanding glowing in my heart, Elder Bafor simply nodded. I had learned the first and most important principle of the flow. True strength is not the power to push back against the world, but the discipline to remain centered within it, no matter how fiercely the currents may rage. I was Kwame of the Akan, and on that day, I first learned to be the rock. Hark, for the saga of the anchor continues. A warrior who has learned to be still must then learn to perceive the motion of the universe around him. This is the tale of how the unmoving rock learned to feel the pulse of the living world, a lesson that would one day allow him to stand against the chaotic heartbeat of a scarred reality. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 2. The Breath of the World. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. In the weeks that followed my trial in the Tano River, I practiced the lesson of the unmoving rock. In meditation, I could find the quiet center within myself, a point of stillness that the daily chaos of village life could not shake. I had learned to quiet my own spirit, but my senses still told me that I was a separate being from the world around me. I was Kwame, and that was the sky, and that was the earth. I was proud of my discipline, but Elder Bafor saw that my journey was incomplete. He found me at dawn, sitting at the base of a great baobab tree, my eyes closed in concentration. The rock feels nothing, Kwame, he said, his voice startling me from my meditation. It endures, but it does not understand. To be a true warrior, you must not only be the rock, but you must also feel the river. You have learned to control your own breath. Now you must learn to feel the breath of the world. He led me away from the village, to a high, flat rock overlooking the great savanna. The sun was just beginning its ascent, painting the edges of the clouds in shades of fire and gold. The air was cool and clean, alive with the sounds of the waking world. Close your eyes, Bafor instructed. Do not just listen to the birds, feel the life in their song. Do not just feel the wind, follow its journey from the great mountains. Do not just feel the sun's heat, embrace the energy it gives to the grass, to the trees, to you. Extend your spirit beyond the limits of your skin. Listen, and feel. I did as he commanded. I quieted my mind, finding the now familiar stillness within. I listened. I heard the distant call of a hornbill. I felt the gentle breeze on my face. But these were simple sensations, the same I had felt my entire life. Frustration began to cloud my focus. Patience, the elder whispered, as if sensing my struggle. You are trying to hear a shout in a storm. You must quiet the storm within you to hear the world's whisper. I understood. I was trying too hard. I let go of my effort, sinking deeper into my center, into a silence more profound than any I had known. I did not try to listen, I simply was. And then, I felt it. It began as a faint vibration through the soles of my feet, the deep, slow pulse of the earth itself. It was not a sound, but a feeling, a thrum of immense, sleeping power. Then another feeling joined it, a vibrant, warm energy from the rising sun, a wave of pure life that washed over the land. I felt the collective heartbeat of a herd of gazelle moving miles away, a frantic, unified rhythm. I felt the patient, ancient life force of the baobab trees, their roots drinking from the earth, their leaves drinking from the sky. It was all connected, all one living, breathing thing. The wind, the sun, the earth, the animals, my own spirit. They were all currents in the same great river of energy, the same breath of the world. I opened my eyes. The world was transformed. The sky was no longer just a blue expanse but a sea of living energy. The trees were not just wood and leaves but pillars of life, their connection to the earth and sky now as visible to my spirit as their branches were to my eyes. The lesson was clear. To be the rock is to have strength and discipline. But to feel the breath of the world is to have wisdom. A warrior with only fights what is in front of him. A warrior with wisdom understands the entire battlefield, for he can feel the footsteps of his enemy and the heartbeat of his ally before he ever sees them. I had learned to be still. Now, I was learning to see. Hark, for the peaceful river can carry poison from a distant mountain, and even the purest air can carry the spore of a foul sickness. The young warrior had learned to feel the breath of his world, but he was about to learn that some things that breathe are not of this world at all. This is the saga of the first shadow that fell upon his home. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 3. The Oni. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. My world had become a symphony. Since Elder Bafor had taught me how to truly listen, I spent my days immersed in the breath of the world. I could feel the vibrant, steady flow of the baobab grove, the joyful, chaotic energy of the children playing in the village square, and the deep, harmonious pulse of my people as they worked, laughed, and lived. Every person, every animal, every plant had its own unique note, and together, they created the beautiful, powerful song of the Akan Federation. It was during the evening market that I first heard the wrong note. The air was filled with the rich smells of roasted plantains and groundnuts, and the vibrant colors of kente cloth for sale. The collective flow of the crowd was a warm, pleasant hum. But as I walked past the stall of Kofi, the woodcarver, I felt it. A jarring, sickly vibration that grated against the harmony of the village. It was a dissonant chord in a perfect song, a sour taste in a sweet fruit. It made the hairs on my arms stand up, and a cold knot formed in my stomach. Outwardly, Kofi seemed himself. He was a large man, known for a laugh that could shake mangoes from a tree. Today, however, his laughter did not come easily. His eyes were shadowed, and he snapped at a customer who haggled too long over a price. Others saw only a man in a sour mood. But I could feel the wrongness radiating from him. I retreated to a quiet corner, closed my eyes, and focused my senses on him as Elder Bafor had taught me. I pushed past the sounds and smells and reached out with my spirit. I followed the ugly, dissonant thread back to its source. And then I saw it. With my inner eye, I could see Kofi's spirit, his flow. It should have been a strong, warm, golden brown light, the color of rich earth and steady hands. But it was being strangled. A vile, parasitic vine of sickly green and black energy was wrapped around his spirit, feeding on it. It pulsed with a rhythm that was alien and hateful, a rhythm of pure rage and decay. For a terrifying instant, as I focused on the corruption, Kofi's face flickered in my mind's eye, overlaid with the spectral image of a leering, monstrous visage with sharp teeth and hollow, malevolent eyes. An Oni. I recoiled as if struck, stumbling back, my own breath catching in my throat. The vision vanished, leaving me shaken and cold. This was not just a sour mood. This was a sickness of the soul. I found Elder Bafor sitting before his hut, carving a small wooden bird. I did not know how to explain what I had seen, so I simply described the feeling, the jarring note, the sickly vibration, the vision of the parasitic vine. He stopped his carving, his face growing unnaturally grave. He set the wood aside and looked at me with eyes that held the weight of generations. "You have seen the dissonance," he said, his voice a low, somber whisper. "The unmaking. It is a story our ancestors told, a warning of a sickness that does not come from our world. It is a seed of chaos that finds a crack in a warrior's spirit, a moment of anger, a flicker of greed, a sting of jealousy, and plants itself there. It hollows a man out from the inside until nothing is left but the rage of the Oni." My blood ran cold. The word he spoke, Oni, was the same name the creature in my vision wore on its face. It was a foreign word for a foreign sickness. "Can he be healed?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The vine must be pulled out," the elder said, his gaze distant. "But its roots are wrapped around his spirit. To pull it out may shatter him completely. This is a battle that cannot be fought with fists or spears." He looked at me, and I saw a new, heavy burden in his eyes. He was passing it to me. "Your gift, Kwame, your ability to feel the breath of the world. It is no longer just for finding peace. You are now a watchman. You can see the sickness that is invisible to all others." I looked back towards the bustling market, where Kofi the woodcarver was laughing once more, though I could now feel the hollow echo within it. I understood then. My training was over. My duty had just begun. The first Oni had come to my home, not as a monster charging from the forest, but as a quiet poison within a good man's heart. Hark, for the saga of the warrior who feels the world's breath continues. To see a sickness is a burden, but for a man of honor, it is also a call to action. This is the story of his first battle, not against a beast of the savannah, but against the dissonant spirit within a friend, a battle that would forge the foundation of his unique and powerful flow. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 4. The First Anchor. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. The knowledge of the sickness within Kofi was a heavy stone in my gut. I saw him in the village, a man hollowed out, his laughter a fragile mask over the corrupted energy I could feel festering within him. To know this, and to do nothing, was a cowardice my spirit could not endure. I went to Elder Bafor. "The dissonance grows stronger," I told him. "I can feel it feeding on his spirit." The elder looked at me, his gaze deep and searching. "A warrior cannot fight a shadow with a spear, Kwame. This is a battle of the spirit. The breath of the world flows through you. You can feel the poison. Perhaps, you can also touch it." His plan was dangerous, a ritual spoken of only in whispers, for a sickness that had not been seen in generations. That night, we led Kofi to a sacred circle of stones away from the village, under the light of a full, silver moon. The other elders beat a slow, steady rhythm on the drums, a grounding heartbeat to anchor us to the living world. Kofi was agitated, his eyes darting into the darkness, the Oni energy within him sensing the purity of the space. "Become the rock," Bafor instructed me as I stepped into the circle. "Find your center. Then, when you are unmovable, reach out with your spirit. Touch the vine that chokes him. Do not try to tear it out. Just hold it." I did as he said. I found my stillness, a column of quiet strength amidst the drumming and Kofi's nervous muttering. Then, I extended my consciousness. I reached across the circle and, with my spiritual senses, I took hold of the vile, parasitic vine of green-black energy. The moment I touched it, the Oni within Kofi awoke. His head snapped up, and his eyes glowed with a faint, sickly green light. "I see you, little warrior," a voice hissed from Kofi's mouth, a voice that was a chorus of rage and mockery. "You think your spirit is strong? I have fed on the despair of 1,000 worlds. Your village will be my next feast. Asterisk. The corrupted energies surged against my spirit, a wave of pure malice and hatred. It showed me visions of my home in ashes, my people wailing in despair. It sought a crack in my own soul to plant its poison. I held firm, my discipline the only shield I possessed. I was the rock, and the hateful current crashed against me. But the rock could only endure, it could not heal. Remembering the lesson of the river, a new, desperate thought came to me. The river's anger flowed around the rock. But what if the rock could draw the poison from the water itself? Instead of just holding the vine, I did something new. I pulled. I did not try to rip it from Kofi's spirit, but to draw its venomous flow into my own. It was an instinct, a choice made in a fraction of a second. Agony. It was not a physical pain, but a spiritual one. I felt the cold, chaotic, hateful energy flood my being. It was the feeling of decay, of rage without reason, of utter despair. It was a poison to my very soul. But my center, the unmoving rock I had cultivated, held fast. I became a vessel, containing the torrent of corruption within the walls of my discipline. I did not let it consume me. I saw the green light in Kofi's eyes flicker and die. The parasitic vine around his spirit withered, a significant portion of its dark energy now contained within me. Kofi's body went limp, and he collapsed to the ground, unconscious but, for the first time in weeks, spiritually silent. At peace. I fell to one knee, drained and shaking, the cold taint of the Oni energy a chilling presence inside me. Elder Bafor and the others rushed to my side, their faces a mixture of awe and deep concern. I had saved my friend, for now. But I had taken his sickness into myself. On that night, under the silver moon, I learned the true nature of my purpose. I could be more than a rock that endures the current. I could be an anchor for my people, drawing the chaos of the world into myself to keep others pure. This was the first true lesson of the Mandingo style. It was a victory, but it was one that would carry a heavy, personal cost. Hark, for the saga of the warrior who chose to bear the burden of another continues. A victory won through sacrifice is never without cost. To draw poison from a wound is a noble act, but the venom must be dealt with. This is the tale of the price of honor, and the revelation of an ancient, cosmic enemy. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 5. The Price and the Ona's Origin. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. In the days following the ritual, a fragile peace returned to the village. Kofi, the woodcarver, began to mend. The sickly green hue had vanished from his spirit, replaced by the gentle, warm glow of his own recovering flow. He laughed again, and this time, the sound was full and true. Seeing him with his family, his hands once again carving beautiful shapes from wood, filled my own spirit with a quiet resolve. The price I paid was worth his restoration. But there was a price. The portion of the Oni energy I had drawn into myself was not gone. It was a cold stone in the warm river of my own spirit. At night, my dreams were filled with visions that were not my own, cities of bone under black suns, worlds of screaming, chaotic energy, and a consuming rage that was utterly alien. During the day, I had to be more vigilant than ever. A flash of irritation at a clumsy apprentice, a surge of pride after a successful hunt. These normal emotions became dangerous hooks for the cold thing within me to latch onto, whispering thoughts of anger and arrogance into my mind. I had to be the unmoving rock not just for the world outside, but for the storm I now carried within. I sought out Elder Bafor, not to complain of my burden, but to understand it. We sat by his fire as the stars began to appear, a blanket of diamond dust on the deep indigo cloth of the night sky. The man Kofi is healing, I said. But the sickness he carried. I feel its coldness within me. What is this thing? Where does it come from? Bafor looked into the flames, his old eyes reflecting the dancing light. What I am about to tell you is a story passed down from elder to elder, a story from a time so long ago that the mountains themselves were young. It is the story of why the world has sickness at all. He told me that in the beginning, the breath of the world was all there was. A perfect harmony, a single song. But the universe is a great tapestry, and our world is but one thread. Long ago, from a place beyond the stars, a great violence occurred. A wound was torn in the very fabric of all things, a deep and terrible injury that wept chaos into creation. From this cosmic wound, a fine, black dust of pure dissonance fell across many worlds, like spores from a rotten fruit. These are the seeds of the Oni, Bafor said, his voice low. They are not creatures like the lion or the crocodile. They are echoes of that first great wound. They are spiritual parasites. They cannot create, they can only twist, corrupt, and consume. They are drawn to life, to the flow, like a tick is drawn to a warm-blooded animal. They are the great scar of Genesis, made small enough to hide in the heart of a single man. He explained that the seeds can lie dormant for generations, waiting. They wait for a crack in a person's spirit, a moment of deep despair, a flash of consuming greed, a festering jealousy, to take root. Once rooted, they feed on that emotion, amplifying it, twisting the person's own flow into a weapon of rage and decay until the host is merely a puppet for the ancient, hateful energy. I looked at my own hands, at the firelight playing across my dark skin. I finally understood. The thing I carried within me was a splinter from that ancient, cosmic wound. The battle I had fought for Kofi's soul was not just a village matter. It was a skirmish in a war as old as time itself. My ability to feel the breath of the world was no longer just a gift, it was a sacred duty. I was a guardian, a watchman for my people against an enemy that came from beyond the stars, an enemy that wore the faces of our friends and brothers. The price of this duty was the eternal vigilance I must keep over the seed of chaos I now carried myself. My inner stillness had to be more than just a discipline. It had to be an unbreakable cage. Hark, for the saga of the warrior who bears a scar on his soul continues. A cage, no matter how strong, must be tested by the beast within. This is the story of how the young anchor was given his first weapon, and how he used its discipline to face the monster he had sworn to contain. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 6. The First Sword, the First Form. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. The cold stone of the Oni energy I carried within me was no longer dormant. It had awakened. During my meditations, where once I found stillness, I now found a whispering serpent. It hissed temptations of power into the quiet spaces of my mind, showing me visions of myself as a great chieftain, feared by all, my strength absolute. It promised that the rage it offered was a tool I could use to protect my people more effectively than any discipline. I held it back, my will a constant dam against its hateful tide, but the effort was immense. The price of saving Kofi was a war within my own spirit. Elder Bafor saw the strain in my eyes, the tension in my shoulders. He knew the battle I was waging. One morning, he came to me not with words of wisdom, but with a gift. It was a sword. It was not the blade I would one day carry in a different land, but an akrafina, the traditional sword of my people. Its blade was leaf-shaped, its hilt wrapped in leather and adorned with shining gold. A warrior's spirit needs a conduit, Kwame, he said, placing the weapon in my hands. It felt heavy, balanced, and alive. Your discipline is great, but it is turned inward, fighting a shadow. The sword demands that discipline be given an external form. Its edge is a line between order and chaos. To master it is to master the focus of your will. Use it. Let the discipline of the blade quiet the monster in your soul. I began my training at once. The sword felt like a natural extension of my arm. I learned its weight, its balance, the song it sang as it cut through the air. But as I practiced the forms, the focus on combat, the channeling of my physical power, stirred the serpent within. The whispers grew louder. The cold stone burned with a hateful fire. It happened during a deep, exhausting training session. As I moved through a complex form, sweat dripping from my brow, I closed my eyes to feel the flow of my movements. And there, in the quiet space of my own mind, the Oni took its shape. It was no longer just a coldness or a whisper. It stood before my inner eye, a terrifying figure woven from green-black smoke and pure rage. It had my shape, but twisted, monstrous. Its eyes were pits of fire, and its voice was the hiss of my own doubts given venomous life. You see, it snarled, its form radiating a corrupting power. This is what you are. A killer. This sword is not for dancing. It is for breaking bones and spilling blood. Give me control, and I will make you a king. Your enemies will grovel, your people will serve you out of fear. This is true strength, asterisk. It lunged at me within my own spirit, a tidal wave of promised power and glory built on rage. I clutched the real sword in my physical hands, its leather-wrapped hilt an anchor to the real world. I remembered the lessons. The rock, the river, the breath of the world. I did not meet the creature's spiritual charge with one of my own. That would be to fight it on its terms, to feed it with my own anger. Instead, I focused on my form. I moved through the dance of the blade, each step precise, each swing controlled. My physical discipline became a fortress for my spiritual will. I acknowledged the monster. I felt its rage. But I refused to let it become my own. You are a part of me now, I said to it, my voice calm and steady, speaking aloud in the quiet training circle. You are the storm I carry. But I am the mountain. You will not command me. With each movement of the Akrafina, I asserted my own will. I did not try to destroy the Oni form. I knew I could not. It was a part of my spirit now. But I could be its master. With a final, powerful movement, I completed the form, slamming the pommel of my sword onto the hard-packed earth. Within my mind, my will crashed down upon the Oni form. It shrieked in fury, not of pain, but of defiance, as it was compressed, forced back down from a roaring beast into the cold, silent stone it had been before. Caged once more, I stood panting in the training circle, the Akrafina steady in my hand. I had won. I had faced the demon within and had proven stronger. My training as a swordsman had given me the focus I needed to truly become a guardian, not just of my people, but of my own soul. The price was eternal vigilance, but the sword was the tool that would help me pay it. Hark, for the final chapter of this origin unfolds. A warrior who has mastered the blade and caged the beast within must now face a world where the sickness spreads. This is the saga of how a man's spirit became a shield for his people, and how he earned the name that would echo through time. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 7. The Strength of the Anchor, the Name of a Legend. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. The seasons turned. My skill with the Akrafina grew, and my dominion over the cold stone of the Oni energy within my soul remained absolute. But the world is not a tranquil pond. A great drought fell upon our lands. The rivers shrank, the crops withered, and the gnawing fear of famine created cracks in the spirit of our community. Where there was once harmony, there was now suspicion. Where there was once laughter, there was now the sharp edge of envy. And in those cracks, the dormant seeds of the dissonance began to sprout. I felt it first as a low, ugly hum beneath the daily life of the village. One by one, I could sense the familiar, sickly vibration of the Oni energy taking root in others. A weaver who argued with a neighbor over a single gourd of water. A young hunter who seethed with jealousy over another's success. The whispers that I had learned to cage within myself were now being spoken by the mouths of my friends. The sickness was spreading. It came to a head during a council of elders. An argument over the rationing of grain erupted into a brawl. But these were not normal men fighting with normal anger. Their eyes held a faint, hateful green light. Their strength was unnatural, their rage disproportionate to the cause. They were vessels, their frustrations amplified into a destructive fury by the parasitic Oni within. Our village was beginning to tear itself apart from within. The other warriors drew their spears, ready to meet violence with violence, to restore order through force. But I saw the truth. To strike them would be to strike our own brothers, our own kin. I looked to Elder Bafor, and he gave me a single, grim nod. He knew what I had to do. I walked to the center of the chaos, my sword in my hand. I did not draw it to fight, but to find my focus. I plunged the blade into the hard, red earth, and it became my anchor. Everyone, calm your spirits. I roared, my voice a thunderclap that cut through the din. Then, I closed my eyes. I became the rock, and I did as I had done for Kofi, but on a scale that terrified me. I opened my spirit, my senses, my very being, and I pulled. I became a spiritual anchor in the heart of the village, drawing the chaotic, hateful, dissonant flow from all the afflicted men at once. The agony was immense. It was a tidal wave of spiritual poison, a maelstrom of rage, jealousy, and fear crashing into my soul. My muscles screamed in protest. The world behind my eyelids was a vision of green-black fire. I felt the Oni energy I already carried within me roaring in triumph, trying to join with the new surge and overwhelm me completely. But I held. My discipline, forged in the river and honed by the sword, became an unbreakable cage. The villagers who watched saw a sight that would become legend. They saw their warrior, Kwame, standing unmovable in the center of the chaos, veins standing out on his arms and neck, his body trembling with a strain that was not of the physical world. They saw a man single-handedly holding back a storm of spiritual sickness, his strength so profound it seemed to come from the gods themselves. In that moment of awe, one of the elders whispered a name from the stories of traders, a name for a man of impossible, divine strength. Samson. One by one, the afflicted men collapsed, the unnatural rage leaving them. They were exhausted, confused, but their spirits were clean once more. The dissonant hum over the village was gone, silenced. All of it was now inside me. I stood trembling, leaning on my sword, the weight of my people's pain a roaring torrent within my soul, contained only by the sheer, absolute force of my will. From that day, I was no longer just Kwame. I was Kwame, Black Samson, Akoro, the swordsman who bore the sickness of his people to keep them safe. The name they gave me in my homeland was one of reverence and love. The other name, the one that would follow me later, was born of a different circumstance. The bastard swordman, that title would come in a foreign land, a world of pale moons and different customs, a place where I was a man with no family, no clan, and no lineage. It was a name of otherness, of being an outsider. But like the Oni energy itself, it was a burden I would learn to carry with honor. Hark, for every saga has its turning point, a moment where the path twists so violently that the world that was gone forever, replaced by a new and terrifying reality. The warrior had found his purpose and his name in his homeland, becoming an anchor for his people. But the universe is filled with storms far greater than any he had ever known. This is the tale of the storm that tore him from his world. Saga of the Akan Federation. Chapter 8, The Quantum Genesis in Japan. Kwame Daisuke Akoro Perspective. Years passed in a harmony I had fought to protect. The rains returned, and the land was generous once more. The spiritual sickness that had plagued us was contained, a cold stone held in the disciplined cage of my own spirit. I was no longer just Kwame, the boy who learned his lessons in the river. I was Black Samson, a swordsman and a guardian, my name a symbol of the strength that comes from bearing a great burden. Life was good, the song of my people was strong and clear. But one day, the song began to change. It was subtle at first. A wrongness in the air, a tremor in the breath of the world, that was not the familiar corruption of the Oni, but something else entirely. It felt as if the very fabric of the sky was being stretched thin, like the skin of a drum pulled too tight. The animals on the savannah grew restless. The birds fell silent. I stood on the high rock overlooking my home, sword in hand, and felt a deep, primal wrongness approaching. Then, the sky tore open. It was not a storm of rain and thunder. It was a storm of reality itself. Above us, the familiar blue expanse ripped apart, not into blackness, but into a silent scream of impossible color. I saw glimpses of burning galaxies, of crystalline forests, of cities that hung upside down. It was a wound in the very firmament of existence, a raw, chaotic bleed of other places and other times. This was the event that would later be named the Quantum Genesis. The world did not explode. It was pulled. A great, silent pressure descended, a force that did not press on the body, but on the soul. The very flow of my world, the breath I had come to know so intimately, was being drawn into the sky tear. I saw trees and rocks lift from the ground, not flying, but being unmade, their energy siphoned into the vortex above. I stood my ground, the rock against this new, cosmic river. But this was no earthly torrent. This was the universe itself coming undone. My feet left the red earth of my home. My body, my spirit, everything I was drawn into the silent, screaming chaos. There was no sense of travel, only of dissolution. I was a drop of water falling into an infinite ocean. I felt the absolute cold of a dead star and the searing heat of a universe being born. My spirit was unraveled into a million threads and woven back together in an instant. Then, as abruptly as it began, it ended. I fell, landing hard on damp, dark soil. The air was cold and filled with the sharp, clean scent of pine and wet leaves, a smell utterly alien to me. I pushed myself up, my body aching in ways I did not know were possible. I was in a forest of towering, straight-backed trees that blocked out the sky, their forms unfamiliar and menacing. The red earth of the Akan Federation was gone, replaced by a bed of dark soil and moss. I reached out with my senses, seeking the familiar song of my home. But the breath of the world, here was a different music entirely. It was quieter, more reserved, with a deep, underlying melancholy I had never felt before. This was not my land. This was not my sky. I had been displaced from the Akan Federation, West Africa, and cast adrift into a new reality, feudal Japan. I stood alone in the deep, silent forest, a ghost from a world that was now just a memory. My saga as a son of the Akan had ended. A new, harder saga, as a stranger in a strange land, was about to begin.